Chapter 12, A Gift, shows Seshat in action. It has the potential to tell us a lot about her and the Order of Prometheus. However, I don't believe Seshat literally exists. So, much of this chapter can't be taken literally. But that doesn't make it meaningless, it just needs to be interpreted. The events of the chapter show a conflict within the Order of Prometheus, and I think there really is one. People within Prometheus have different opinions on how to handle the collaboration between Leto and the ABN on the Arable L5 virus and its countermeasure. As I explained in my Arable L5 video, I believe the countermeasure to it was developed earlier than it was publicly known. The reason the ABN was not affected by the virus at first was that it was already using the countermeasure. Since it's Amos, it was likely developed in collaboration with the IPMA. After it's developed, the ABN will immunize itself with the countermeasure and expects Leto to do the same. Then the ABN can release the virus, and Leto and the ABN will have the upper hand over the rest of the world. This seems like it would cause a large conflict, which Gray seems opposed to. So, he has a different idea. I think Gray may be proposing to secretly immunize the entire world. That way, when the ABN releases the Arable L5 virus, it will actually do nothing. Completely disabling a powerful weapon before it's ever used seems well in line with his goal of peacekeeping. However, the release of Amos is locally controlled. Leto can't just put whatever Amos it wants all over the planet. That's why Gray's plan involves the use of wisdom. I believe that particular piece of wisdom, the gift itself, is a way to control Amos all over the world. Maybe this part of Seshat's character bio refers to that capability. I've previously speculated that Prometheus used global Amos control to mess with the environment at the end of the story to force the second truce. Maybe this is the meaning of Seshat's objection. When she says it's not the right time, she's thinking ahead to that event, but Gray is trying to use the wisdom much earlier. Anyway, the way the story actually goes follows neither Gray's nor the ABN's intentions. Apparently, Seshat has a third way. Actually, I suspect it may have been more Tojiro's idea. What actually happens is that only the ABN is immunized against the Arable L5 virus at first. Even Leto takes damage from it. This makes the ABN look extremely suspicious and is a betrayal of its secret deal with Leto. Leto then leaks the virus data, and Leto scientists quickly pretend to create the countermeasure. The end result is that the ABN looks bad, and Leto looks good. It runs even deeper than that. The Arable incident convinces the Order of the Public Bath that they need eyes to guide them, and gives Leto the clout to anoint new directors who will effectively serve as those eyes. So, this was the hidden purpose of Leto's Arable strategy. However, during the Gift chapter, the Order of the Public Bath didn't even exist yet. That ties into another subtle detail of this strategy. The Gift happens in the middle of sudden global conflicts when Gauntlet Knights are first used in the field. Afterwards, the four factions involved mostly threaten each other and act hawkishly. All of them, except the ABN, which has a quieter response. It fired its own responsible officers and sought a peaceful resolution. This really stands out and needs explanation. It could be because the ABN seems to be at fault in both of the conflicts it was involved in, but when has that really ever stopped anyone? The general reason that people all over the world are in a warlike mood is that it's promoted by their various medias, all of which are being manipulated by Tojiro's Order of the Wisteria. At the start of the chapter, news being announced in the airport talks about the AOU-COU conflict. Then it switches to an ABN conflict, which gets people's attention. This is the kind of news that's used to stir a warlike mood, but this is at the start of the chapter while Seshat is in the airport. In other words, it doesn't really happen. Towards the end of the chapter, the airport news once again reports the AOU-COU conflict. Next, instead of saying anything about the ABN, it talks about the AOU-ACR conflict, which does not create a warlike mood. Now, you would naturally think the second part happens later, so both sets of messages were reported, but the announcement about the AOU-COU conflict is word for word identical both times. So, maybe the second scene doesn't happen later than the first, but actually happens instead of the first. In other words, scenes where Seshat is visible show a world which she has not yet adjusted according to her goals. Seshat is nowhere to be seen when the second set of announcements happens, so I think this is the final result, which includes everything Seshat wanted to change. So, one of the things Seshat wanted to change is to make sure that the ABN is not whipped into a belligerent fury like the other three factions. Since Tojiro is the Grand Master of the Order of the Wisteria, he can make that happen, dovetailing with Seshat's goals. I think the reason for this is to control the timing of the release of the Arable L5 virus. The ABN's leadership believes it has this weapon in its back pocket, and this is its way of launching a big attack. Prometheus wants to delay this attack until later, so Tojiro has Wisteria keep things calm in the ABN for the time being. The people are not clamoring for war, so the leadership doesn't start any, and does not release the virus yet. In a later chapter, there seem to be terrorist incidents all over the world, what Tojiro calls decoys. This renews the hawkish behavior of the four non-Leto factions. This time it does include the ABN. Incidents happen within its borders, and it seems like its people are finally demanding war. This is the first time there's public support for war in the ABN. The leadership responds, and not long afterwards the Arable L5 virus incident happens. However, these terrorist incidents only happen after the formation of the Order of the Public Bath. This is the ideal timing that Prometheus was waiting for. This further supports the idea that the way Leto played its knowledge of the Arable L5 virus was specifically to try and take control of the Order of the Public Bath. I doubt anyone could have predicted its formation besides Tojiro, who I think actually caused it, so I think this scheme has his fingerprints all over it. Here's some evidence. Meow feels unaccountably compelled to email Tojiro. Tojiro responds with a call, uncharacteristically. At the end of the conversation, Meow declares he'll create a chivalric order. After actually creating it, he feels embarrassed and says he won't tell Tojiro about it. He eventually does anyway, and Tojiro acts surprised. Why is all that happening? Meow told Tojiro he would create a chivalric order, but then acted like that never happened, and Tojiro acts that way too. There's something really fishy with this scene. I think Tojiro is messing with his mind, making him do things without him realizing. That's why I think Tojiro was in control of when the Order of the Public Bath got created. He prodded the Order into existence. Only after that did he encourage war within the ABN, which caused the Arable L5 incident. That incident made the Order want eyes, which Leto was in position to provide. Tojiro was in control of this whole sequence of events, trying to give the Order of Prometheus control over many Gauntlet Knights. Anyway, that's an interesting interpretation of Gift, but there are still facts at hand to deal with. Valentina, Mari Carmen, and this Leto official really did travel to this ABN airport. There isn't much reason to doubt that. Then no one remembers anything, including why they did that. So why did they? And what happened? My first thought is that not everyone in this party is actually as confused as they appear. It could be that one of the Gauntlet Knights really has no idea what's going on, but the other one and the official are in on it. Mari Carmen seems more confused in the hospital scene, but according to her character tips, she's tricky like that. I think it might really be Valentina who's being fooled here, but it doesn't make much difference either way. As for what's really happening here, I speculate that it may be a data transfer. ABN and Leto need to share extremely sensitive information about the virus and countermeasure. We are told in this chapter about the enormous difficulty of overwriting human memories, but what about reading them? We see Tojiro do just that in Chapter 9, Monster Party. So maybe one of the Gauntlet Knights secretly has some extremely sensitive data related to this scheme inside her brain. When she gets to the ABN, it gets read out, much like Tojiro pulled information out of the military man. He too felt a mysterious lapse in consciousness. The point of going to all this trouble is to have a secure way to transfer the data. It really is difficult to securely and secretly pass information between two factions like this. But one very secure place is inside the mind of a Gauntlet Knight who is very capable of defending herself. This is only subverted by her travel companions betraying her. Anyway, that's my speculation on that. As a quick flip-flop, since it seems like the original plan was to have a big war between Leto and the ABN on one side and the other three factions on the other, maybe the Three Kings really did have a hand in the Arable incident. At least, as initially conceived. I still don't think they know very much, since it should be pretty damn obvious who leaks the information, considering how everything turned out. Another interesting comment that Seshat evokes during this incident is that the Order of Prometheus and the 9th Prime Chivalric Order are brothers with a shared source. I could see how that's the case. The Order of Prometheus is the 9th Prime writ large. The 9th Prime use one piece of secret technology, body swapping, to try and maintain a geopolitical status quo. They want to enforce the walls of peace. However, if they succeed, then they are an unparalleled military force, so continuing the status quo relies on their not abusing this unchecked power. Prometheus, meanwhile, uses all sorts of secret technology, and the very concept of hidden tech. It wants to enforce a civilizational status quo, where humans are in control of everything, rather than being under the sway of supernatural forces, or of overwhelmingly powerful technology. However, if they succeed, then they have all the most powerful technology under their sole control, so continuing this status quo relies on their not abusing this unchecked power. I think they came from the same source, too. A big driving force behind various actors is avoiding the factory world, which they call the end of civilization. How did they see it coming? It's a prophecy delivered by Veer Dreisig. Veer really threw the world for a loop by reacting strangely to learning that prophecy. I think she told various people about it, which isn't normally supposed to happen. She also gained enough credibility that people actually believed her, possibly by creating amazing technologies, such as the Dreisig conversion. Surely, she could only have done that if she were touched by God's undeniable truth, and translated it for everyone. Anyway, those are mysteries of the past. The main point here is that Prometheus manipulated the Arable situation in various ways to reach its own ends. However, that largely fell apart with the Peace Conference explosion incident, and things only got more complicated after that. There's this Mario guy doing strange things, a kid's meal of natural disasters, and even Seshat and her gauntlet make another brief appearance. But do you feel like you're beginning to see more of the full picture? Keep trying to figure it out, and I will too.